Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the New Era Paranormal Workshop, cinematography workshop for Pennhurst Asylum. We're going to walk through an experimental A-roll, B-rolls. Basically, if we were the last ones to visit the Pennhurst Asylum, do a walkthrough, do a documentary on it, what would we want to include as A-roll and B-roll? We're going to speak about that. The Remnants Project is actually a cinematic experience based on the relationship between history and the paranormal. And then I think history.
Pennhurst it feels still like it's a living environment. Like you go into the Quaker building and it just surrounds you. And I think that's important to portray in your documentary. Just how much energy there still is of who remains and what everything that happened here. Because there were millions of people that went out of here, and it's also important to represent that history respectfully, especially in documentary. The way you portray the people that would have lived in here is very important to be, not to portray them as it's this very terrifying, these horrible people, but they were real people that lived here and died. It wasn't their choice. There's very much a storytelling angle you can take to the documentary of the paranormal sort. Each section of Pennhurst tells a distinct story. Like in here, it looks like there's rooms down here that people would have lived in, and there's baby rooms and there are children's rooms, and so those sorts of people that would have lived in there. And we were just in a building where they had a bunch of forgetting the word for it.
The cribs?
Huh?
The cribs in Mayflower?
Yeah, the cribs in Mayflower, but that was not the word I was thinking of. I'll think of it eventually. There's so much medical stuff, like those dental chairs with people in Pennhurst, when they've been nurses and stuff, they would have just had all of their teeth taken out immediately. And so to see those dental chairs, it's important to kind of focus on those because there's all that history in each building. There's the tunnels, those are very secretive, and you don't really know what's going down there.
As far as the story, though, it intertwines everything. It's the blood veins of the place.
And each section of this place would have been about survival. At the end of the day, getting out of here someday, a lot of people didn't. But it's important to focus on people that would have been in here. Because there's photos everywhere that we have been seeing specific people and people's artwork that you can focus on to kind of bring them more into the story too.
Another way to bring them into the story would be to actually show historical their IDs, all the documents that they had behind who they were, where they came from, their identities. Actually give some context to who these people were. That can be done through the B-roll of shooting the beds, the cribs.
The camera should also feel like a witness to this place, because when you're shooting a documentary, it should feel like the person watching it is part of the investigation too. We like a lot of the slow push-in shots of like you're walking through someplace. We like a lot of the long standing hallway shots because it makes it feel imposing in a way, because it does. A lot of these hallways are that you are not supposed to be in. Like filming through doorways and windows, because it feels like, again, you're watching and you're looking through it yourself. The flashlight only scenes, it also makes the investigations feel a lot more intimate. Like, you can't see what's around you, so that's also, again, imposing. But to see, like, just a flashlight, it's like you're also doing that investigation. And then, like, symmetrical framing of, like, something's in the middle or stuff like that really makes the B-roll shots stand out.
So a lot of the history to reflect on, to try to incorporate and show in a visual way, is that this place was built in 1908. It was an institution for individuals with developmental disabilities, and then it was all designed to be one little city. It was supposed to be a colony where everything was here. They didn't have to go off-site. And then it became overcrowded, and that's when all the bad aspects of it developed. Anybody that was in the colony that was able to work and farm or take care of the place was employed by the colony. Sound design is really important. Do you want to talk about sound design and cinematography?
Sound design, you don't always have to have sound for it. You also use the silence, like just listening to how empty the hallways are. You can also use that as part of your story. So that it went from very chaotic with all these kids and all these people, and like now it's just quiet. And they were here a long time ago. It's use like tunnel echoes, like you can hear, use your voice, like in the tunnels. See how that changed. Footsteps goes here too. And you can also use this ambient room tone noise. And room tone is always important in film because if there's something in the background that you want to erase out, you need to have a room tone to go also.
This is mostly the B-roll that gives you a lot of information outside of your walking shots. It gives you where you are, what's happening, who's there, what the environment's like, if it's a city, if it's the country, which this is kind of the country, the way it's isolated pretty well from everything else.
Yeah. I would say for like the actual investigation itself, there's a lot of different ways that you can take it, and that's all based on like who you are as an investigator, who your team is. But for us, it would involve like a lot of isolation sessions. Like I would go into one of the rooms down there and just stay in there for an hour while these guys would go somewhere else. We do for the editing, like putting the investigation into the documentary. We would do again a lot of the like static tunnel shots. We would do a lot of like long takes with no music, like just showing how like silent this place could be when there's not many people in here. It's very shocking, like because you can. There's a lot of different ways where you can show how full of people this place was to how silent it was now. We were at the museum earlier and you could see all the photos of like the kids in gym class, and if you could find where that photo was taken, that would be great to show like here's like 50 kids doing jumping jacks or whatever they were doing in the photo, I think, and then showing like how there's absolutely nothing in here now and it's just empty and crumbling a little bit.
So I think what's important to talk about is how we would actually film, which obviously we would start with the admin building because that's where they first got here. They left their families and then they lost their identities. They became part of the colony. Probably do a drone shot over that, show the entire colony, what's left of it. if there's anything to show that their identity was taken away, any records, that'd be a place to include it.
I'm sure that would be in the museum up in, which building was that?
I think it was Mayflower. I think
think-
that's the one with all the resources.
Yeah, I think it was.
It's also important to show that how much interest the Shady's treating people with disabilities. Like, how was he really very democratic, and they were very well taken care of, but well understood for that matter. And then, like how it is now. Like, it was ostracized in with disability.
After that, a lot of the negative energy would be flowing from the admin building down to the tunnels, and we'll take it everywhere else. The one building I haven't been able to check out yet is the industrial building, which is a lot of what they would have been doing in the colony if they were well-bodied, and that has a lot of the information to show, to include in the B-roll in our film.
Yeah, I mean, there would have been farming. I remember reading that there was a post office. There was probably some sort of butcher shop, because there was one at Livingston County Courthouse. There would have been, I saw a lot of sewing stuff. Like, people
lot
were
of sewing.
like sewing everyone's clothes and all of that.
And crops, I'm sure they had crops somewhere.
Yeah.
And then after that, after you go through the basic of what it was, then you would turn to the paranormal side of it and what it is now, and what's remaining, and what's interacting with us, and the stories that still have to be written.
Yeah.
That's what the Remnants Project is for us. It's trying to use paranormal investigation to further expand the documented history for a lot of these sites. Pennhurst is a great example of a site that still has stories to tell
Oh, yeah.
through paranormal investigations.
I think it would be very interesting because I feel like a lot of paranormal shows kind of focus on doctors and nurses that have worked here, but there would have been so many people like still alive that lived in here because this place closed in the 1980s. Like all of my family, it would have been alive, like my parents and everything. So they wouldn't, like people would remember being in here, and it would be, I think it would be interesting to talk to former patients that lived here about their experiences, because you do get a very skewed experience in a lot of shows about like doctors and nurses from like the very like able-bodied perspective, and I'm interested to see more of the disabled perspective.
Which is something that you're interested in.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about something like that.
Okay. There's so many ways to communicate with spirits. I think it's important to take a very kind perspective and understanding perspective, because I see a lot of investigators going in and they are being mean to spirits, they are saying negative things, they are, what is the word for that?
Antagonizing.
Antagonizing. I was thinking of a specific word and I also can't think of that.
Provoking.
Provoking, thank you, yes. Like just provoking,
minds.
and it's not going to work probably in a place like this in the way that you want it to. Because the spirits are just going to get very angry because they felt that in life from like doctors and nurses that were mistreating them. So it's easier to take the provoking route because you're immediately going to get that angry reaction. But I think it's important in places like this to not try to provoke an angry reaction out of spirits, but to sit there and be like, nice to them and understanding of who they were as people, asking them questions about themselves. I've been seeing that a lot in like Project Fear recently. Like they'll ask like, we know that you were stuck here, but what's like one aspect of yourself that you liked, or like who were you outside of this place? And I think that that's very important to ask, because I feel like a lot of places lack that sort of understanding.
And that type of energy would be infused to these buildings. So if you set it off, it can be like a big bomb.
Firecracker, yeah. And it's
And
not,
it doesn't help the spirits at all.
No, it doesn't help the spirits. It doesn't help, honestly, with disabled community as a whole, because people watch these shows and see that sort of behavior, and they're like, it reinforces ideas about disabled people and mentally ill people that really affect the communities, because people will then go out and be like, oh well, these crazy people, and it's not like that. It's a lot more nuanced, and I think there's a lot more understanding in shows now, and in the paranormal community in general, but we could still use a lot of work.
And with the minorities, for the Remnants Project, we're doing a series of locations tied to the Underground Railroad to try to see if we can expand that documented history. It's not a racial thing. We chose the Underground Railroad because it's the least documented historical event. Because a lot of the records that would have been kept had to be gotten rid of. So we're taking 5 different locations, trying to see if we have any stories to go between all of them, any faces that are at each site, and using a lot of the cinematography that we spoke about here to make more of the cinematic experience and hopefully change the paranormal, or try to be one of the faces of the new generation, new era.
There's a lot of work to be done.
But it seems like a natural evolution for the paranormals.
It really does.
There's definitely parts of history that people don't know about, and we're just trying to show them life.
Okay, you guys got any questions? Yes.
Hi, Adriana. So, in talking about like diversity and not just in racial history, but also in body and disability history, what would you suggest in places where it's like you don't know really much about the history? What would be some suggestions about being more open and diverse?
I would say be patient, because a lot of these spirits had learning disabilities, or they were deaf, or they were blind, so it might take them more time to go to a REM pod or communicate at all. I would say, what else?
Open questions, a lot of open questions, not yes or no, is because you're trying to get a lot of information. I would try to use like audio recorders and the Ovilus and word generators so that you can do more than yes or no's, which is a lot of the equipment is based on yes or no's, but it doesn't help you to learn. Then just try to build on questions like, what is your name? Who were you? Like, what did you do here? How long were you here? What time frame? It might be hard because they might not have that much energy, but if you take like a Tesla coil and try to give them more energy, maybe that would help.
I remember the word that I was thinking of before. It was mobility aid. And I was trying to say that one thing that I would focus if I were making like a full documentary about this place would be in the museum portion. They had a bunch of mobility aids where they had wheelchairs, but then they had like knee braces and they had canes and they had all that stuff. And I would focus on that in the investigation because I have to use a cane. I'm wearing knee braces right now, so it was very emotional for me to go into that building because we're not that different. And I think that would be an important part of the investigation, would be to like talk to spirits and be like, we have probably the same issues. Someone in this building.
You can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I've been around children with disabilities myself, basically in school. And I'm just saying, just draw my own experience. I want to understand that not all spirits are verbal in life. They can probably only react to like knocking per se.
Yep.
Like if I find other ways to communicate with them, like you want to touch them, like that teddy bear or whatever. Just gotta be open-minded. There's no thing that open the domain that they're going to record or that they did with that. Just gotta be open-minded and think what would they use instead.
I think that's all I got. We covered
That's
a
all
lot.
I got, yeah.
If you want to follow our work, we're anywhere at Paranormal on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube.
We do podcasts and we post videos of our investigations.
And we're trying to do high resolution documentary series for the Remnants Project. We're filming right now. We're trying to see how far we can go with the distribution because we're trying to meet the qualifications for Amazon Prime. And maybe, probably not, but Netflix, because they're very specific down to the detail level. We'll see. All support is appreciated. We're going directly to the source for talking to the first person, which is how a lot of history is written. Well, it's definitely going to have the community touch. Because we're doing it the right way.
Just cries.
There's a skinnier black male than the man with the beard that I think is George. He's like around her, like it's almost like he has his arms on his hands on her shoulders.
So scared.
I like the mix between the history and the investigation because you can kind of see what the psychics are saying compared to the history and how it all matches.
If our documentary doesn't go anywhere, we're going to have a lot of cool content hit just as hard.